Hello, my name is Hilary Weber, and I am the owner of Unleashed Pet Services, and I have here with me
Brenna Gray, the owner of Premier Animal Wellness and Surgery, also known as Paws.
What does your veterinarian look for on a dog food label? So the biggest question is, what is the first thing that you look at when you look at a dog food label?
So the first thing that I look for is the AFCO statement. So any food that is sold across state lines has to have an AFCO statement on it, saying one of three things.
Okay.
One, is the food formulated to meet their guidelines? So is it nutritionally complete? And then that's kind of broken down based on puppy, adult, gestation, senior pets. So it can say that. The second option that it could say is that they've done feeding test and then it meets the AFCO criteria based on feeding test when they feed it. And then the third thing is that the product is not intended for it, or it is intended for intermittent feeding, meaning it's not meant to be a diet for long term.
Okay.
So that's the first thing that kind of, we want to make sure that this food is at least designed to be nutritionally complete.
Right.
Where that falls apart a little bit is if it is designed to be nutritionally complete, does not mean that after it is made, it meets those standards anymore. So they've done tests on dog foods out of grocery stores that meet AFCO standards, that the bag itself doesn't always meet the standards. So there are,
slip through?
because it's designed to meet the standards. So
Interesting.
just like us, when we, broccoli, when broccoli is picked and you take it and you eat it within 24 hours, it's full of nutrients. When broccoli is picked and sits there and it is frozen and it is boiled before you eat it, it is continuously losing nutrition.
So it's like degrading it.
Yes.
Okay.
So, that just because we have what broccoli is when it's fresh, depending on the manufacturer and how they're handling and storing ingredients, they are continuously losing nutritional value.
Is that just like as it sits on the shelf type of thing?
Not necessarily as it sits on the shelf, but even those raw ingredients, how they are handled, how they are cooked. If we take, like, for example, us, if we take fresh broccoli and we eat it right out of the garden versus we froze it
how many times?
And then we boiled it, or we steamed it, or we put it in the microwave, we're changing the nutrition of that broccoli. It is losing quality.
It's just the way that it was
handled
or
cooked.
made.
All of those things can contribute. There's many different reasons, but that's kind of like the easiest way to think about it is it's not always as ideal as we'd like it to be.
Right. And labels can be so tricky.
So
and sneaky.
Sneaky. And that's the next thing is, a lot of people, we think, we want meat to be the number one ingredient.
Right.
We want chicken to be the number one ingredient. When we look at labels, it is by weight. So meat is 50% water. Inherently, because once you get all of the water out of that meat and make it into dry dog food,
dehydrated out.
Dog foods don't usually have more meat than they do the grains or those other ingredients, because, for example, grains are dry. You're already getting the dry weight there, versus meat, it's dehydrated out into the dog food. So that's sometimes just another little tricky thing. Another thing that I kind of look for is there novelty ingredients, or what I call marketing ingredients, like blueberries.
Oh.
Blueberries are a great marketing ingredient.
Yeah.
They sound fantastic. It looks really cute on a label. Is that what's actually giving your dog the nutritional quality of the food? Because when we think about dog foods, no one ingredient makes the food.
Right.
So having chicken or salmon, that's great protein, but you or I can't only eat chicken. We can't eat chicken every day and have that be nutritionally complete. So really it's the sum of the ingredients that's actually important. So those are kind of some things that I start with when I'm looking at a label.
Interesting. It's definitely overwhelming, I think, for a lot of people, even myself. Like when you go into a dog store, any store that sells pet food.
Yes.
There's so many options, and you go into looking at the labels and trying to look at it, and it almost looks foreign, when you look at those items on there. And then you see the sneaky stuff like blueberries and, pumpkin or squash or things that are like good. They sound good.
Yep.
But when you think about it, and they are dehydrated or cooked down into that one piece of kibble or pieces of kibble.
Yes.
How much is being lost? It makes you wonder what foods are actually, I wish there was a way to know more about. Is there a way to know more?
There is.
Okay.
So, and that is what I encourage people to do. Because again, dog food labels offer little to no information about the true nutritional value of the food. And to get that, it would take a major regulation change. Mm-hmm. So for us, we look and it's got, okay, this food has this much protein in it and a percentage of the daily value and things like that. Right. It tells us the nutrition. A dog food label tells us no nutritional value.
Right.
The company can help us with that. Oh. So what I encourage people to do when they're looking at a dog food, unless it's a company that we know is a good company, and I think with that, sometimes we think of these, what's good marketing? Who has the best marketing? Some of these small boutique-y brands, that it's artisanal and it's homemade and it's made with love, and that all sounds great and grand, but at the end of the day, a lot of that is marketing. Yeah. And even statements like vet recommended is marketing. Even the AFCO and the regulations on putting that on the label that's marketing. There's as long as it's factual. As long as it's not false, it can be on the label. So they could find any vet to recommend it, and okay, it's vet recommended, but was it a veterinary nutritionist that recommended it? Who was that?
Right.
Let's learn more about that.
Let's have some more information on the veterinarian that recommended it.
Absolutely. So when it comes to finding out which dog food we should feed, I kind of have a list of questions, 9 questions that I encourage owners to. One of the things that does have to be on a dog food label is contact information or the manufacturer. Okay. Yeah. Sometimes we'll find on these like big box stores that have like house brand foods that they may not have. It may be the corporate office for that big box corporation that they list, and they're not going to have any information. And they're also not making their own food. Mm-hmm. They're having a sub-manufacturer make it, which they may or may not give you the information for.
Which is crazy. So sometimes it's just like, if they won't tell you the information, they're not.
There's your red flag. There's where we say, hey, this is not someone. So I have these written down because I usually email these out to people. But does the manufacturer employ at least one full-time qualified nutritionist in the veterinary side? So that means a PhD in animal nutrition or a board certification. Okay. So that could be by the American College of Veterinary Nutrition, or European College has also that. The second question is, what are the qualifications of the person who formulates their food? It should be the same as the nutritionist. 3, does the manufacturer own the plants where their food is manufactured? Are they outsourcing, contracting it? How much control are they actually in? And when you call a company, they should easily be able to answer these questions promptly. It should not be confusing to them. This should be things that they know. Most small companies, most of these little companies, are not making their own food. So that's just another, do they own their own company or not? Number 4 is, what quality control measures does the manufacturer practice? So that can vary widely. And again, that comes into this question of, is it meeting AFCO standards after it's manufactured? How are they handling the ingredients? Are they refrigerating the chicken? Are they making sure infections stay low? So that's another thing. Example of quality control measures could be, certification or hazard analysis, things like that, to make sure that they're doing the right things. The fifth thing is, are the foods tested with AFCO feeding trials? Not just saying that it will work, not just saying it meets nutritional guidelines.
Yeah.
Have they fed the foods to the dogs and it actually works?
Right.
It makes a difference.
Yeah.
Does the company conduct research? Do they publish their research? What are they putting into this food?
Mm-hmm.
And then can they provide nutrient for everything? So like, say we have a dog with heart disease and we need to know, is this a high or low sodium food? Can they tell you that? If they can't tell you that, they don't know. They don't know what it's at. And just like any of our food would have a sodium content on it.
Yeah.
They know the sodium, the ingredients and what the sodium is. They should be able to tell you what that dog food has in it. And that can go for any of the major nutrients that we worry about. So can they provide the number of calories? Again, most dog foods are going to have the calories on there, but it just comes back to, can they provide that to you?
Right.
And then the final question is, does the manufacturer make other pet foods? Is it just their pet food or is it others? So
and
just
then getting probably information from that.
And then getting information from them as well. So those are just kind of the things that I would say we think about, because our dog food labels provide very little to us.
Yeah.
The companies, though, when we call them, should be able to provide
that's a good idea.
Everything. And calling them is helpful.
Yeah. It can definitely, it sounds like it could be really eye-opening.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very curious. I kind of want to do it just to see what happens.
Yeah. And I think, kind of a good example of this is there were it has been linked that taurine deficiency can cause enlarged hearts. And there's been, and not just
taurine deficiency.
Taurine is an amino acid.
Oh, okay.
Or an essential amino acid.
Okay.
But then there was also some novelty or kind of boutique brands, and they were starting to get linked to dogs with dilated cardiomyopathy or enlarged hearts.
Wow.
And through research, it comes back to, hey, it's probably because these dog foods have lots of legumes and things like that in them. These were not cheap dog foods. These were expensive boutique brands, like great marketing dog foods that were having issues.
Well, and legumes are like fillers, right? Like lots of those.
Yes,
like
and with that, like with fillers, when we think of carnivores in eating, I think some things grains are bad. Grains are not bad.
No.
Grains are good.
Yeah.
Dogs can't have allergies.
Right.
And if we have a dog with allergies, we need to avoid certain things.
Right.
But as a general rule, feeding grain food is good. And not that dogs are wolves, but if a wolf were to catch something, it's going to eat the intestinal contents of a deer that eats corn and other grains.
Yep.
So even
it's
if they were
get those
wild animals, they're eating them.
Yeah.
They're eating them. That's part of what they would eat. It's not just the meat that they need.
Right.
So I think that's another thing to kind of think about.
That is a good thing to mention.
Grains are good.
So then, and this might be a whole other subject, but it just made me think about it when we're talking about blueberries and, squash pumpkin, things like that. If you wanted to be able to give your dog those kind of nicer things, would it almost be better to get like those silicone molds and like make like a little mix and freeze it and like put it on as like a topper?
Yeah. Doing toppers is great. If you want it, blueberries are excellent antioxidants. Are they good for dogs? I mean, yes, I'm not saying that blueberries aren't. I'm just saying how much blueberries are actually in that dry kibble.
Well, and that's where my brain kind of thinks about,
toppers are great. So, blueberries, even sardines, pumpkin once in a while, those are all great things to kind of add onto the top of the food. It's just when they are on the actual dog food label, how much are they really getting?
Well, and it makes me wonder too, because like what you said, if it's been, how much of it is actually still in there and actually nutritious to them,
Yes.
would it almost just be better to just put it in as like a topper? Or, you know, like we've thought about getting like those little molds and like making like little kind of like supplement vitamins of like a mixture of just different fruits or veggies that are good for them.
Yes.
You know, stuff like that. So I just made me wonder if that would almost be the better option.
Yes. Yep. And I think that's a great option. Or using it, you know, in training, rewards and treats. Right. Have a blueberry, have a little something, you know. Yeah. They make great treats too, which are really nutritious.
And those would be good for their teeth too, because they're crunchy.
Yep. Yeah. Yep. Exactly. Yeah. So
awesome. That's really interesting. It definitely gets my brain thinking. And now I'm curious about my dog food company.
Yeah. Give them a call.
Right. Awesome. Well, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us on this week's Pawsitive Talks. Whether you're a devoted dog lover, a curious cat parent, or somewhere in between, we're glad to be part of your journey. Until next time, stay curious, stay kind, and keep it positive.